And just like that, the 23-24 season is over for the Golden State Warriors. Now, as a Warriors fan, I'll admit for the last stretch of this regular season, I did harbor some optimism about this team's chances heading into the postseason. That was considering how this team had seemingly turned a corner since the All-Star break. But that was quickly put to bed in sad fashion as the Sacramento Kings, who despite missing two key players, just demoralized the Warriors. In the following video, we're going to look at the season that was for this team, what got them to this point, the highs, the lows, in-betweens, problems, contract situations, and what the future could possibly look like. Just under 2 years ago, these Warriors looked to be on cloud 9, fresh off their fourth title in 8 years. It almost felt like this title came out of nowhere. In fact, many in the mainstream media thought after the Warriors' 2021 play-in elimination to a young Grizzlies team that it was over for this dynasty. And I guess it was until Steph let him know about it in the post-match press conference.
Tried to make the most of it, come back, bottle this up, everybody make the right strides, take advantage of the summer, and don't want to see us next year.
The team won largely thanks to major contributions from JP, Wiggins, and everyone else kind of just fell in line and played their role. Such was their contribution, the former were rewarded with big contracts heading into the 22-23 season. And from there, it just became a train wreck. For whatever reason, Draymond punched Poole at training camp, and the title defense was derailed before it even started. The team began the season 3-10, in what was their worst start to the season in the Big Three era, if you discount the injury-riddled 19-20 season, of course. But despite this, throughout the season, the Warriors were able to galvanize and even secured the 6th seed, where they met Sacramento in the first round. After 7 grueling games and a heroic 50 ball from Steph, they scrapped to move past the 3rd seed Kings to meet the Lakers in the semis, and ultimately got bounced in 6 games. From here, the writing was on the wall. Ultimately, the turning point was the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole saga. The animosity lingered all season, and the team was never the same again. We don't know exactly what was said, but all factors point to Poole saying something along the lines of, "You're being carried by Steph all your career." After opting to give Green a big contract in the 2023 offseason, Poole had no place at the Warriors. He had regressed badly, and obviously couldn't mend things with Draymond. Now with Poole off the books, the Warriors sought to run it all back, this time with the addition of aging legend CP3, who they acquired in the Jordan Poole trade. Many didn't understand what the point of this move was and questioned how he would fit in this system. But for front office, they saw it exactly for what it is. Send Poole to the East Coast with his massive contract and take CP3 for this year and see how it goes. After an opening night loss to Phoenix, the team won 5 straight and looked to have turned a corner. Except, Steph was doing all the heavy lifting. Outside Steph, Saric was the only other player to have scored more than 20 a game in the first month. Wiggins, Looney, Draymond, and Thompson were nowhere to be seen, and the team would win only 5 of their next 18 games. A lot of this coincided with Dre's suspensions, which stemmed from his obsession with choking and hitting guys in the face. Once Green was back, they seemingly turned it around, losing only 12 times in their final 39 games, but it was far too late. The competition was well ahead, and for the final 2 months, the Warriors were battling to have a chance in the play-in, never mind the playoffs. All this catch-up and aging stars having to play consistent back-to-backs meant there simply was no juice left in the legs. This was all on show, and Sacramento just dominated from the outset. Mike Brown had a clear plan in mind: hound Steph all day long and force the cavalry to stand up and make plays. They had no answer, and the game was over by the 3rd quarter.
And they're gonna do just that.
But the biggest storyline was Klay and his big 0 on the stat sheet. It couldn't have happened at a worse time for him, as he was in the final year of a lucrative deal, which he had signed all the way back in 2019, following his season-ending ACL tear in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Coming into the 23-24 season, there was a lot of speculation around what Klay's next move was. The front office put a 2-year $48 million deal on the table for him, which he swiftly declined, instead opting to back his talents in hopes of a more lucrative deal, which probably explained his erratic early season form. He went on a "I'm Still Him" tour, taking bad shots to the point they were leading to direct turnovers. As the season went on, he never really found himself. At one point, he even got benched for rookie guard Pajimski to end the season averaging 17.9 points per game on 43, 38, 92 splits. For me, one thing that's been evident all year is the team has done a complete 180. Last season, the team struggled in the non-Steph minutes, which eventually was the reason they couldn't go far. This year, with the addition of CP3, the bench was a shining light, ending the season statistically as the third best in the entire league. Kuminga flashed his star potential, but Jimsky was crucial whenever he stepped on the court. Jackson Davis was that big man the team so desperately needed, and Moody is the ultimate professional, who always did his job when called upon. On the flip side, Wiggins, Thompson, Looney, Draymond, and GP2, for differing reasons, were well below their best, which asks the question, where can the Warriors go from here? Now on paper, this team actually performed better than last season, winning 2 more games, but they obviously didn't take into consideration just how much the West would improve, which ultimately showed in the end, as the team was 10-24 against all teams above them in the Western Conference. There's still several months to go before free agency, but one thing for sure is, there's no way Lacob and co are going to go way over the cap again to be a middle-of-the-range team. Between Steph, Klay, Dre, Wiggs, and CP3, you're looking at a combined total of $172 million and some change in salary. This group alone puts the franchise $30 million above the salary cap, and when you add in the guys on rookie deals and vet minimums, it's not a surprise why the bill is through the roof. Now, unlike many who think Klay Thompson will and should be on his way out, the Warriors know he's simply too good to just let walk away.
And I know I speak for everybody in the organization. We want him back. Obviously, there's business at hand, and that has to be addressed with Klay's representatives and Mike and Joe. But what Klay has meant to this franchise, as good as he still is, we desperately want him back.
In a down season, even by his 35-year-old standards, he gave you almost 18 points per game on 38% from 3. So he won't have no shortage of suitors, and I'd hate to see him on the Mavs or Lakers where he'd be lethal getting open looks all day long. And my expectation is a deal will get done. In saying that, his role should be reduced significantly. You just can't afford another season of running the offense through him anymore.
Klay Thompson at 3. Klay for the win. Good! I told you.
While on the other hand, the casualties of this season would most likely be CP3 and Wiggins. Now, while CP3 has done his job, his contract is far too large for the return on interest, and you'd expect Pods to take the next step regardless. On the other side, you have Wiggins. While he thoroughly deserved his contract extension following his role as the second best player in 2022, his last 2 seasons have been subpar. So poor to the point it's evident JK is probably ahead of him on the pecking order. At first, it seemed like the Warriors were banking on Wiggins to come out and be a genuine second option, but the screen test is showing he's nothing more than a 3-and-D guy. And quite frankly, $27 million a year is far too much for a 3-and-D guy who's ever so inconsistent and just put up one of the worst statistical seasons of his career. Moving on from Wiggs could yet prove to be difficult but not impossible because he's still young and his contract isn't overly big. The other player who's probably on his way out is Croatian big man Dario Saric. Saric started the year in fine form. The pick and pop with CP3 was working a treat, but as the year went on, he became unplayable. Too slow to match up on wings and guards, and too small to protect the paint, turning him into a garbage time merchant. And for a team severely undersized, he probably finds himself out the door. Next up we have Kevon Looney. It's honestly hard to vault Kevon as he's the ultimate professional and goes about his business with zero fuss. But that early season collapse from this team showed he's definitely lost a step. It wasn't until Jackson Davis started getting his minutes that the team turned a corner. But granted, his contract is a small one, at only $7.5 million for next season. It wouldn't be a surprise if he was brought back. Another player who is sort of in between is GP2. It's no surprise why the Warriors brought him back, after initially allowing him to sign with Portland. He's one of the best defensive guards in the league, can knock down a 3 when needed, and is a menace on the glass. The only issue is his availability. He missed 38 games this season alone, but he has 1 more year to go on his contract, which also happens to be a player option, and all signs point to him opting in at this point.
DJ Washington. Went and got it out of space. Got it to Payton.
Next up, you have the young core made up of Kuminga, Pajimski, TJD, and Moody. Now, unless Dunleavy and the front office go after a really big fish this offseason, it's hard to see any of these guys leaving. The value they bring on such menial contracts would be a big reason why, especially with Kuminga. There's a reason why they opted against trading him at deadline. The upside is there, and based on how he ended this season, there really is no reason why he shouldn't average 20 a game next year. Next up, we have Dre. Despite his antics and disciplinary issues, it's hard to question his importance to this team. Whenever he's on the court, the team is that much better. He makes the guys around him better and is the defensive anchor of a team that's consistently having to punch above their weight, especially with all these small ball lineups they run. But can the Warriors and Steph handle another 20 games missed due to suspension from him? Well, I don't know. Finally, we have the best of the rest, Steph Curry. Now, Steph had a down year by his lofty standards, averaging 26 points per game on 45, 40, and 92 splits. In parts, his form fluctuated greatly, which can be attributed to his insane workload. Steph had to play 74 games this season and was often required on back-to-backs. Such a workload is too heavy for anyone to carry, but especially when you're 36 and really the only consistent shot creator on the team. And that's the truth of it. Between Wiggins, Klay, and Draymond, none of these veterans have consistent shot creation that aligns with being the number 2 option on a contending team, especially not in a stacked Western Conference. Kuminga is still 2 to 3 years away from being that guy. The bottom line is, there really is no more big 3. It's just Steph and then everyone else. And that's how this upcoming offseason should be approached. Now, unless there's an insanely huge jump from the likes of Kuminga, Podziemski, and Jackson Davis, which at this point seems unlikely, Dunleavy must go in search of a genuine number 2 to put next to Steph and prolong these final years of his prime. Because truth be told, Steph is good enough as a number 1 option to contend. It's whether the front office values him enough to equip him with what he needs.